Okay, hello. Thank you so much for joining me today. Now, today we're going to talk about some of the logistics involved in moving abroad. As you might be aware of, I recently moved from Panama to Portugal. And so today I want to talk about some of the things I had to do to facilitate this particular move. I recently had to take about 6 flights in less than 3 weeks. So I want to talk about some of those things. And keep in mind, although I'm talking about my recent move to Portugal, some of these move abroad tips can be used no matter where you're moving abroad to. So stay tuned, sit back, and let's dive right into it. Now, before we do that, if this is your first time joining my channel, my name is Mary Golf. My channel, My Season Life with Mary Golf. This is a channel where I inspire, motivate, and encourage women to live their best lives. We talk about moving abroad, living abroad, traveling, wellness, and all sorts of stuff. So if that's something that you might be interested in, make sure you hit the like and subscribe. And don't forget to click on notifications so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. Okay, so let's get started with me having to take 6 different flights in less than 3 weeks. So let's back up a little bit. So I came to Portugal October 14th last year, 2024, with the ideal that I was going to move to Portugal sight unseen. It was my first time coming to Portugal. I found an apartment, did the paperwork, had my appointment in the States at the DC visa office to turn in my application. And one of the requirements to get a D7 visa in Portugal is to have an apartment lease. So I literally had to plop down some money and I was holding on to this apartment here in Portugal. Okay? So my intent was to come back, which I did. I came back to the States in December after spending almost 2 months in Portugal. Came back to the States in December, went through my visa appointment in DC, and then I spent some holidays in Philadelphia with some family members. So the original plan was to come back to Panama, where I moved from, to wait out time to get my visa approved. But while I was home during the holidays, I decided, since I was paying for this apartment that I had just rented and just signed the lease, rather than go to Panama and pay for an Airbnb for a whole nother month, it didn't make sense to do that when I had an apartment here in Portugal that I was already paying rent for. So I decided, instead of coming back to Panama, to fly back to Portugal. Okay? And also it was a great time because it was during the holidays. They were having a lot of sales. So it gave me time also to buy some things for my apartment, because my apartment is unfurnished. So I was able to, get a nice couch on sale and things like that. Okay, which we'll talk about in a whole nother video. All right, so let's stay with the logistics. All right, so I had, at this time, you can only be in Portugal 90 days on a tourist visa. 90 days, I think, every 180 days on a tourist visa. Okay? So because I had already spent almost 2 months, now I'm back in Portugal, I only literally had about a month left on my 90-day tourist visa. So I couldn't stay past that. So I, first flight, flew from round trip, because I had a round trip flight when I came to Portugal back after the holidays, flew back to Newark. That is my first flight after the 90-day period. Okay. At this point, my visa was approved. Okay. So a part of the processing process, of the application visa process, once your visa is approved, you have to turn in your passport so they can stamp your visa. Now, you have to do this from the States. So I had to come back to the States. Not only was my 30 days up, when the whole 90 days were up, I also had to turn in my passport as a part of the visa process. So I took one plane, first plane, from Porto, Portugal to Newark, Delaware. And so then I needed to be in the States in order to turn in my visa. So I went to my girlfriend's house in Orlando, Florida. So that was the second flight from New York to Florida to wait about 4 or 5 days to turn in my visa. So I sent my visa, to turn in my passport. So I sent my passport Federal Express overnight with a return envelope Federal Express overnight. Now I was crossing my toes and fingers because I'd already had a flight. I flew in to Orlando on a Monday, already had a flight. That would be my third flight from Orlando going direct to Panama. So first flight was Porto to Newark. Second flight, Newark to Orlando to turn in my passport with an overnight FedEx envelope, which I had my passport back to me with the visa stamped on Wednesday. Okay, so on Friday, the third flight, I went from Orlando directly to Panama, okay, to clear out my storage. Okay, now one thing about decluttering, clearing out your storage, clearing out your house, whatever it is that you have to do, this is not some one-time thing. Like say you're working on a room, maybe your closet, for example, you go through your closet. You might have to go through that closet 2 or 3 more times. I went through the storage room the first day. I had to go back the second day. I think I went back the third day to go through some things. When I was packing suitcases, some of the suitcases were packed 2 or 3 times to make sure I was taking things that I wanted to take, because I had in my mind I only wanted to travel with 5 suitcases. Where that number came from, I think I decided on what I wanted to take and what I didn't want to take, so I wasn't going to go over 5 suitcases. Although I could have easily, because the airline allowed you to take, I think, up to 10 bags, whatever it was, but I didn't want to come with that many. I wanted to do 5. So whatever didn't fit was being donated. And I donated a lot of stuff. The majority of all of my clothes were donated. A lot of household things, because I was originally going to come back to come back to Panama and stay in an Airbnb for about a month. So I still had some kitchen stuff that I was going to use while I was in an Airbnb for a month. So all of that stuff got donated. Just a lot of stuff. All right. So because at the time when I was in Panama, my son was located in Peru, and I didn't know when I was going to see him again. So I decided I was going to go from Panama to Peru to go spend a couple of days with him. Okay. So that was my 4th flight from Panama to Peru. Went to Peru, spent about maybe 3-4 days with my son. Came back. That's the 4th flight. 5th flight, Peru, back to Panama. Okay. So, and then I had a couple of more days to work on my storage, to finalize my 5 bags, give the rest of the stuff away, donated it to the guy who worked at the supply, at the storage storage place unit. And on Sunday, I believe, Monday, I don't know, I flew on my 6th flight, one-way flight from from Panama to Porto. But actually, it's 7 flights because I connected. I had a connecting flight. I flew from Panama to Madrid, got off the plane, spent several hours in the airport. So I had about a 5-hour delay. And then I caught the 7th flight from Madrid to Porto. So a couple of tips when you're flying long, when you're transporting bags, when you're over the normal amount, you have more than a couple of checked bags. Now you have to determine how you want to get your stuff to wherever you're going. For me, I was coming to Portugal, so I had to choose how I wanted to move my stuff, what I wanted to move, what I wanted to bring, and what I didn't want to bring. So I decided basically I wasn't going to focus on clothes. I focused on things for my hair, things for my body, things for my skin, stuff that I um, had an abundance of, things I had stocked up on. Because when you're moving abroad, when you first move abroad, sometimes you can't readily find things that you need for your everyday care. So my advice would be to stock up on those things, and then while you're there a couple of months, you can start figuring out where to find those things. So those things to me were more important than clothes. I could always buy new clothes. So I let a lot of my clothes go. The majority, I think I had one suitcase that was full of clothes. The rest of my suitcases had, toiletry items, hair stuff, um, body stuff, all kinds of stuff like that. Had a couple of kitchen stuff because I do love to cook, so I always have my knives and things like that. So, but the majority was not clothes. Okay, so I checked with the airline first to find out what the baggage fees were. Okay, and it's always cheaper to pay for your bags over online than pay in person, because you don't want any surprises either. Okay, so you don't want to get to the airport and find out you can't show up with 10 bags. Okay, so I paid for my bags first. So I had 4 bags that were 50 pounds and under, and then I paid for one bag because I couldn't get it under 50. So I paid for the overweight bag. I could go up to 75 pounds. I think that bag weighed like 65 pounds. Okay, so I paid for those bags in advance. I also flagged in my phone the email, which had a copy of that, okay, which will become very important, and also showed proof of payment that I had paid for the bags. Another tip is that when you're traveling a long time, make sure you allow yourself enough time. Don't go rushing to the airport, especially if you have a whole bunch of bags. When I left to go to Porto from Panama, I went to the airport, I think like 3 hours before. For one thing, I had a night flight, so I didn't want to get on a plane hungry, because you never know about the airline food. And I wasn't flying business class this time, so I know I was going to get food, didn't know what it was going to be. Okay. So I didn't want to take any chances. And I was flying an airline, Iberia, that I had never flown before, which was actually, it's an airline, a Spain airline, and it was awesome. And the food was good. Although I went on the airline, on the flight with a full stomach, one thing about the Panama airport right now, they have like a ton of new restaurants. So if you're flying out of Panama, go early and check out some of the restaurants. So I went early, had a really nice meal, a ramen meal. Then I went to relax in the lounge, because I always have lounge access. And the lounge doesn't really have good food to me. Panama's Copa Airlines. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. So go to the airport early so you can relax, get something to eat. Don't go on the flight hungry, because you don't know how the food is going to be. Okay, so I had a night flight. And because I had been traveling, this was like my 6th flight in less than 3 weeks, y'all. I don't normally sleep on airlines, on flights. I just can't sleep on a plane. I had something to eat. They served dinner maybe like an hour and a half. I was watching a movie. An hour and a half into the flight, they start serving dinner. I ate some of the dinner. Had something to drink. And, put on like my night stuff. I carry silk caps. So I put on my silk cap. I had a scarf around my neck. I had a blanket. And I was like chilling watching a movie. All right. When I woke up, y'all, it was an hour and a half left to go to Spain, to Madrid. I had slept like maybe 6 good hours. So I was exhausted. I didn't even know I was exhausted. So I also had a very long layover in Madrid. So I decided to walk around the airport to just see because I hadn't been in Madrid airport for a very long time. And I think they had like about 4 terminals. I mean, it is insane actually. Another tip, make sure you have a rolling bag. If you have a tote, make sure it can attach to a rolling bag. Don't be struggling with some tote on your bag, on your back, with some backpack on. We're way too old for that. If you need assistance, get wheelchair assistance. I don't need wheelchair assistance, but I allow myself time, and I had to do a lot of walking, had to catch trams. It was a lot in that Madrid airport. But I said, let me go find the lounge. It was so big, I couldn't even find the lounge. Finally found the lounge, and actually, the Madrid airport lounge had really good food. So I decided, okay, I'm just going to chill in here for a couple of hours. And that's what I did. Found a nice quiet spot and just chilled in the airport for a couple of hours until it was time to go board. Okay? So I had a very short flight from Madrid to Porto. Let me back up a bit. Now, when I checked my 5 bags in Panama, the first thing the girl, the representative, said to me, oh, you're going to have to pay. She said, how many bags did you check? And I said, 5. She said, oh, you're going to have to pay extra for those. And I says, I already paid. And so she says, well, I don't see that. And mind you, I don't even think she even looked at that point. And I said, please check again, because I've already paid for these bags. In the meantime, I'm going through my phone, finding my receipt so I can show her. So at this point, she has my passport, and she goes walking off with my passport. So in my head, I'm thinking, oh, goodness gracious. This is why you come early, because this is like going to be a problem. So then she comes back. And then she says, do you live, because I only had a one-way ticket. She said, oh, do you have proof of coming back? And I says, no. I said, I'm moving to Porto and I have a visa. So she said, where is the visa? Can I see it? And I said, it's right there in the passport, because they stick it onto the passport. In the meantime, some nosy representative, another girl who's waiting on another customer, listening to our conversation, says to me, oh, you need to show your visa. Now, I basically didn't even respond to her, because I didn't need to, because I'd already told the girl to look at the passport. So then she walks off again with my passport, and I'm like, oh my gosh, these people are not going to let me get on this plane when it clearly says it's a residency visa. So then she comes back and she says, okay. So she tells me to load the bags up. So I'm loading up the 4 bags that, remember I have 4 bags that weigh 50 pounds and 1 bag that weighs 75 pounds. So I'm loading up the 4 bags that weigh 50 pounds first. Then I put the last bag up that weighs 75 pounds. It weighs 65, but I paid for a 75-pound bag. I put that up. And she says to me, this bag is overweight. You're going to have to pay extra. And I says, no, I don't. I've already paid for an overweight bag. Please check your system. And then she looks down and she says, oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I said, no problem. So my point is, make sure you know what the rules and regulations are yourself, because you cannot always rely on, it might be a new employee, it might be someone that's not as detailed or efficient. So you got to show up with your ducks in order, with your receipts. If you purchase an extra seat, if you purchase priority seating, whatever it is, because I always get all of that. I don't like you waiting in a long line to get on. If I'm not flying business, I'm going to get all the extra perks. I want to go on early. I want priority seating. I want all of that stuff, because I don't like sitting in the back of the plane, and I don't like boarding last. So whatever extra perks you have purchased, make sure it's showing on your boarding pass. Make sure you have your receipts in your emails in case you need to show them, because sometimes they're going to question you. You have to be ready. All right? All right. So fast forward. We're going through Madrid. We're at the last flight. I have arrived in Porto with 5 bags. Okay. The good thing about the Porto airport is that they have the luggage carts. Okay. So you don't have to pay for them. They're just right there. But I could not find anybody. There was nobody available to assist. I think it was an early morning flight. Nobody was around. Okay. And so I needed 2 carts. So I loaded up my luggage. It all came out because I'm like, oh, please have all my 5 bags arrive. Because that's another thing you're stressing about. Are my bags going to arrive? I mean, people say luggage gets lost. The first time flying with this airline, I had looked it up. It was a reputable airline, but so many things can go wrong. All my bags arrived, no problem. Load up everything. So I have the 5 check-in bags, but I also have my carry-on, which is a small rolling bag, and a tote bag with me. So like 7 pieces all together. All right. So, because I had went through customs, or was it immigration? Immigration. Because I went through immigration in Spain, and I'm part of the the countries. I'm already in Europe. I didn't have to go through immigrations in Porto. All right. But you do have to go through like this customs area. So here I am trying to push 2 carts full of luggage. And I'm like, okay, you're definitely getting stopped. For one thing, I could not maneuver the carts at the same time next to each other. They had like mine of their own, and I was holding up like the line of people trying to get through because it's not a big space to get through that little customs area. So the customs officer came over. He says, where are you going? What are you doing? He said, where are you coming from? And I told him, and I said, oh, I'm just moving here. And he said, oh, okay. And so I pulled out my passport and showed him the visa. He said, oh, okay, no problem. He said, why don't you push one at a time? Push one car and put it over to that corner, then come back and get the other one. I said, okay, good idea. So, so I'm pushing my carts out that way where I'm not holding up the line. And then, I push them out one, then go get the other one because the driver that I had arranged could not come in the luggage area. So because I could not find assistance and I was traveling by myself, I had to maneuver that by myself. So if you're traveling with more than one cart, if it's by yourself, I don't know, ask a stranger or just do what I do, push one at a time. Because everybody's in a hurry, they're trying to get out. I mean, there were several guys, brothers. Nobody said, I'm not saying that they had to offer, but nobody said, can I help you push a cart out? Everybody was like just moving, just trying to get out of the airport. So nobody's going to like take your cart of luggage. Nobody wants that. Okay, so I just pushed one ahead, pushed the other one ahead until I was at the waiting spot, till I found a bench and sat there and waited for my driver. So the tip, so several tips is to have your stuff in order. When you get to the airport, go early, give yourself time. Don't get on the plane hungry. Make sure you got a bottle of water. Make sure you have comfortable shoes. If you need airport assistance, don't be ashamed. If you need wheelchair assistance, get that when you get on the plane or, before you book your ticket, because once you get there, sometimes it's difficult to get. So that's how I came here with 5 bags, 7 flights. First flight from Porto to Newark, from Newark to Orlando, Orlando to Panama, Panama to Peru, Peru to Panama, Panama to Madrid, and Madrid to Porto. 7 flights in less than 3 weeks. And when I finally got here to Porto, I was exhausted. It took me over a week, maybe 2 weeks, until I finally started feeling normal. And I'm getting readjusted to this time zone again. So it's been a lot. It's been a lot. My son was, I didn't even realize. He was like, Mom, because I was telling him how tired I was. And he says, Mom, you realize how many flights you've been on? He said, your body is exhausted. I mean, I don't know how the flight attendants do it. I don't know how. I never get sick. I came back from that last flight. I had a little runny nose, but, it wasn't anything serious. I drank a bunch of hot tea and just relaxed, just chilled. And, eventually it went away. But just give yourself some grace, y'all. And And don't try to do everything at one time. Um, I have a bed to sleep on. I have a couch. I have a chair to sit. So I'm not out here rushing trying to get everything done at one time. I'm going to take my time and I'm going to rest when I need to rest because, hey, I am a seasoned lady and flying 6 different flights, these different time zones, in less than 3 weeks is a lot for anybody. But that is something that I had to do to make this move from Panama to Portugal. So you probably won't have to do 7 flights. I'm sure you're not, depending on what type of visa you get, depending on where your country is, how long you're going to have to wait. Some people get their visas if there's no residency requirement. A lot of people, especially in Mexico, are getting visas and not even moving right away. They're still planning their move, but they're getting their visas so they can be ready when it's time for them to move. So whatever it is you got to do, you just got to get it done if living abroad or relocation is something that you want to do. All right. So thank you so much for watching. I just wanted to talk to you about some of the logistics that I had to go through to make this move from Panama to Portugal. It was not easy. It was exhausting. It was tiring. Oh, and let me say this, and that's why I did not get a chance to see anybody when I was in Panama, because I was on a time clock. I was trying to get through my storage and I had to do it several times, okay? I was exhausted. I wasn't sleeping because in my head, I had a time clock going off in my head. Mary, you got to get this done by this time. You already got your plane flight to go back in Porto. This all has to be done before you go. You got to dwindle your stuff down to 5 bags. Everything had to be done. And it's not easy, even though you're moving for a good cause. It's not easy deciding what you're going to take and what you're not going to keep, especially when you're looking at like maybe brand new stuff or stuff that you're like you still want, but you don't have room for it. So at least in my head, I decided to have room for it. So just know that there's lots of moving pieces to moving abroad, and you're not going to always feel that this is like, oh my gosh, the best thing. No, there's some tough stuff that you're going to have to do and some of the choices you're going to have to make. So keep that in mind. So I just want to bring you all of the different sides. You know, I know a lot of people, you know, we all show, oh, I'm living my best life abroad. You're not always living your best life. And to get there, you probably have to go through who knows what hoops to get it done. And I am still in the process. So I am not home free yet, okay? I'm still in the process of getting my residency card. I have the visa, which is only good for 4 months. The next step is to get a residency card, which because I'm not going to talk in details about that right now because I'm still in the process, okay? Now, once I'm done, then I'll do a separate video. But my next video, I think I'm going to talk about the differences that I'm finding between Panama and not only differences, but the similarities also between Panama and Portugal. And I'm also going to do a video about some of the apartments that I saw or looked at. Some tips to help you find an apartment here in Portugal. I have several apartment videos about Panama, but I'm going to do one here in Portugal. All right. So thank you so much. I hope I wasn't just rambling, and I hope this was helpful to you. Make sure you like and subscribe. This is a free way to support my channel. It also shows the YouTube that I'm providing a value, something of interest to you. So thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing day, and I'll talk to you soon. All right. Take care.